talking of academia, um, what are the skills? What is the good side of it? Like, what are the skills that people are generally using to their careers now? And maybe you could talk about how academia has helped you at to where you are right now, and the things that you're pursuing in terms of science communication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think, like I mentioned briefly when I was talking about my journey, when I was saying, once I kind of had recovered from my eating disorder in the middle of my PhD, and I had realized that the PhD is a great opportunity to develop all sorts of skills that are transferable. I think the biggest thing that I really appreciate from my time was the opportunity to be a mentor and to gain really invaluable leadership skills, project management skills. I was lucky enough to be doing my PhD at a really well-known university that had a lot of students that were interested in either pursuing research themselves or going to medical school. And, in the US, along with doing, the MCAT, medical school applications require all sorts of prerequisites, one of them being research experience or clinical experience working in a hospital and things like that. So when I was kind of getting started with my projects, or actually about a year in, I realized that if I wanted to achieve the results I wanted to achieve and in a timely manner, I needed extra help. I needed the help of students. And so for me, it was actually, once I recruited students, they were not only helping me, but I was also helping them in getting their research experience, and they were helping me get my projects done in a more timely manner. But I just felt, with all of my students, I just felt like it was a really great opportunity to practice teaching, to practice being a good listener, to practice being a good teacher. Because I think something that a lot of us lack as a society is being good listeners, being good teachers. Because oftentimes, we often blame the students or someone we are teaching something to for not understanding something, when a lot of the times it's actually the person who was teaching them.
Yeah.
It kind of goes back to your earlier comment about making sure we have really great teachers in the system. But I think we also need to be aware of the fact that, we need to develop those teaching skills and find whatever opportunities there are to develop them, and not overlook those type of activities as being less than research or being less than something else. It's an invaluable skill. And so I think over the course of my PhD training, I ended up mentoring over 20 students at various levels of undergraduate education, and also at different, as I progressed in my PhD. And it was also really nice to see them kind of interact with each other and develop friendships that they otherwise would not have had if it had not been for that research experience in the lab. So it was really nice to see that. But along with that project management experience, I think I mentioned earlier, I was able to practice a lot more scientific writing. In the beginning, it was technical in the sense that I was working on my first paper. But that opportunity allowed me to also understand how to, write the paper in a way that, number one, tells the story that we're trying to tell with the data, and also not make it so technical that even your colleague, is not going to understand it. So I think even when we write scientific papers, one thing that we need to be aware of is, can we write this in a way that is more effective? And that is something that I definitely learned, in that period when I was writing that paper. Also the experience to make presentations. This is an absolutely critical skill, because I don't know if you've experienced this in academia, but there have been so many instances where I've been in classes, I've been at seminars, I've been at lab meetings where the person presenting has no clue as to how they are presenting and how to engage the audience, how, again, to be effective in their communication. And it has led to seminars that go on for hours and hours and hours.
Boring seminars.
Boring, exactly. And, it's very, very unfortunate because, as scientists, we should be able to, we understand our data, but we should be able to make whoever we are speaking about our data to interested in it as much as we are. So, going back to the skill set and developing those skills, when I was in my PhD, there was an opportunity for me to present my data, but I had only 15 minutes to present my data. And I was like one of the last people to present that day. It was a seminar conference. And obviously I had taken some time to practice in the week. But of course, like I think most of us, we are always trying to add like the last bit of data right before the day we present. So we're always working on it. But all of my colleagues that were presenting, every single one of them went over time. Even if just by a minute, I was checking, the moderator was just telling them time, you're over. And I was like, let me see if I can meet this. Let me see if I can hit the mark. And, luckily for me, I hit the mark, and the moderator was just like stunned, just like, wow, we have a person that listens to, who listened to the requirements and didn't go over time and got all of the information they wanted to get out. And I think once that happened with me, I realized, wow, if this is something that a lot of scientists are weak in, maybe this is something I can further develop and, be confident in and try to exploit in other career opportunities, which is something that I'm really excited as a, now as a someone in scientific communications, something that I'm really excited to be able to do. Because not only is it a challenge, it's something that is necessary. Going back to like social media and the digital age, our attention spans are as short as ever.
Yes.
Unfortunately, nobody wants to sit down and read a long book, or nobody wants to, sit at a meeting for more than 10 minutes. Yet it happens. And I think if we get better and better at communicating and effectively communicating our points in a direct way in which people understand, I think the better we will be able to engage our audience in this era, so to speak. So those, I would say, mentoring, project management, scientific writing, both technical and now in my current, and third, oral skills, public speaking, and effective presentations. I think those are the three like most critical skills I developed. And it's funny how those three skills, again, they're transferable and they have nothing to do with learning a specific protocol for an experiment. When I think back, like, even if it's something as simple as immunohistochemistry or working a microscope or, using the flow cytometry apparatus, I would say that those skills are good, but I think prioritizing, your public speaking skills, your writing skills, your management skills are going to be so much better for if you are thinking of a career outside of academia.
Thanks for saying that. And talking about that presentation, I just wanted to, add a comment. Was it yesterday? When is today? April 14th. It was yesterday. There was this competition where you were supposed to do a 3-minute speech at where I am. And it's something that I think people have been thinking about, but started working on it lately, like I think for the past 1 week or something, or days or hours before the presentation. And you're supposed to make your language as simple as possible because it's a vast audience, because the judges are from different backgrounds. You're supposed to make them understand your research, understand the impact of what your research is going to do, all these things in 3 minutes. And you're supposed to have one slide. It's not like kind of a poster, but not a poster. I don't know how to say that. And it's online, and you have to look at the camera, and you have to express yourself. You have to be creative. Some people are bringing ticks to the presentation. Some are bringing milk, depending on what. People are really trying, and for this, it's a competition, and you're given a prize for the people who win. And I found it very interesting. And as a self-proclaimed science communicator, I was so much under pressure in my head. Like, no one was pressuring me, but I was pressuring myself. Like, okay, if I cannot communicate my research, then how again am I a science communicator? Like, it doesn't make sense. And the one of the reasons I had so much pressure about it is because for the past 1 year I have been presenting, maybe in school or in seminars in my institution or in the lab meetings, and at the end of the presentation, or maybe in a cup dev report meeting, at the end of the presentation, there's so much silence, and it's like you're wondering, okay, was I clear? Was my research boring? Was I understood? Is it complicated? Did I not uncomplicate it? Like, you just stressed. And I remember every single meeting, I always felt that way. I always felt like the only person who understands my research is my supervisor. Sometimes I would feel so misunderstood, and it used to stress me a lot. I can tell you that. But yesterday, after practicing with my lab members, and you were telling me, say this, I wasn't as confident. I was like, I wouldn't say that. Like, if I was to explain to you what I'm doing currently, I would use a very different approach from what I used in that presentation. But there's that formal setting thing that we have in our heads. Like, it's the same way. If I was to write a blog about my research, it would be a very different approach, and you still understand. But if I'm to write a manuscript about the same research, I'll have to use this complicated word so that I can sound scientific.
Right.
Or if I present my work in school, I have to use this big word so that I look serious. But if I'm on a date and someone just happens to ask me what I'm doing, I explain them in the simplest terms, and they're not in science, but they understand what I actually said, because of the informal setup and the formal setup that is killing our creativity and how we can communicate the science. So what happened when I was in trying to practice, one of the lab members said something that I don't know if they know, that it made me, I don't know, I had a relief. I was like, finally they understood what I've been saying all this time, They were like, it's been 1 year and I've never understood what your research is about until this 3 minutes practice, and I've seen, oh, this is actually what you mean. This is what even people called me. They're like, oh, okay, so this is what you do with your transposomes, because they've been telling me. There's someone who always says, oh, you and your transposomes, but they really don't understand what I'm doing with those transposomes until. As much as I felt like I didn't get the response that I was hoping for, I felt like people called me and I asked them, did you understand what I said? And they were like, yeah, you're trying to do this and this. And I don't know, it's not there, but I felt so much relief. Like, it's a weight off my chest. Like, someone finally understands. And it's not, for me, it's not like winning the prize. I need people to understand what we're doing. And if I can't do it from my end, then what am I doing? Like, Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know why. I mean, maybe it stems from the whole traditionalist view in academia, but for some reason, there, like you said, there's this pressure for us to always use the biggest, words and, the most technical jargon whenever we speak to colleagues. But, I've found that when I do that, sometimes I'm sitting there trying to memorize what these words are, how to use them properly, because, what if I say it wrong and I don't understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But I think the most effective thing we can do, and I hope one day we kind of gravitate towards that, even in academia, is this prioritization on trying to communicate what you're doing in easy to follow words, in a way that you're not going on and on about the research, but you're able to effectively communicate it in a specific amount of time. I don't know if this will happen in the near future. Maybe the next generation of professors, will kind of steer us in that direction.
Yeah.
But it is something that is unfortunately we are dealing with. And I think that also impedes us as scientists to be able to practice communicating our work to a general audience. I think there is an issue in the sense that when it comes to education, we do need to bring up society to understand the most basic of terms. When it comes to cancer, it is critical to understand what the word metastases is, or, tumor or progression-free survival. Those are terms I think if our society has a general understanding of, can make it easier to communicate even more information.
Yeah.
I think we have this issue where we have really intelligent, technically educated individuals in academia, and then we have people in society who, checked out of 6th grade biology and have never looked at it since, and which is a problem, because
I'm not interested at all.
Right, and so that makes it difficult to communicate. And I think, us scientific communicators are starting to tackle that issue and are trying to make, at least progress towards a bridging of these two groups. But I think we are going to be doing great work. We are doing great work. And I think now that we are understanding that there's a need for that, is overall we are going in the right direction. But I'm glad you brought that up. So,
well, I like that you mentioned that, like, the part where the past people we are communicating to, there's that huge gap that sometimes, as much as we're trying to make sound simple, it's harder when you have to explain every single word, like gene, immune response,
yes.
Anyway, I've never thought about that in that way.
Yeah. It's actually funny because I remember I was working on a SciComm project, and I was sharing it with people who have a college education, but they're not biologists. And even though I thought I was explaining it, dumbing down a paper, they were still saying, "Oh, I don't know if I get this."
Yeah.
And when I was looking at it, I was seeing, I was trying to use the most basic of words, but also not dumbing it down so much that it sounded very ridiculous. I mean, you can say cancer, or you can say tumor, but then if you say really bad clump of cells, that just sounds very, very bizarre. So it's almost, we have to find a way, maybe it goes back to early education and really prioritizing the importance of certain vocabulary in science and a number of subjects even, so that we have a group of people who, even if they're not biologists, know what these words are, so that we can effectively communicate even more information about these things.